Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about episode 4 of season 2 of the X-Files. It is called Sleepless and I will be going into full spoilers from the beginning, and this is the one which stars Candyman himself, Tony Todd, so quite a get for the X-Files at this point. And it's pretty cool if you think about it, because of course they had Chucky in season 1 with Brad Dourif's appearance, and now they have Tony Todd, famously known as Candyman. The episode is directed by Rob Bowman, who's a big director when it comes to the X-Files. I think this is his first episode directing for the X-Files. I can't remember him appearing in season 1, so that's definitely noteworthy. He also directed the first X-Files movie and a bunch of other big names episodes, so definitely one of the best directors on the X-Files. I think he always brings a lot of style to his episodes and to his movies and stuff, and definitely has a good grasp on genre storytelling. And it was written by Howard Gordon, although originally Chris Carter was working on it. The script I read today, but apparently he wasn't happy with how it was going, so he handed it over to Howard Gordon. And the episode got about 8.6 million in the Nelson's ratings, so quite a big drop from last week, which is a shame because it's a really great episode. This is easily the best episode of this season so far in the 4, and personally speaking, it may be one of my favourite X-Files episodes altogether, and I think it's one of those that just gets better every time I see it. I just get more out of it. Plot is that then Tony Todd plays Augustus Cole, who's a war veteran. He was at the Vietnam War, and he, as a result of having not slept for years and years, as a result of the torture he suffered at war at the hands of one of his colleagues, a doctor, he now has garnered this unique ability where he can conjure up visions for them to see, and that can manipulate them into doing different things, and it starts leading to a bunch of deaths, and we soon find out that he's going through the different people who were on the squad who he blames for what happened at the Vietnam War, and Mulder and his new partner for the episode, Alex Krycek, is on the case, of course. So it really gets into some very realistic areas with, PTSD and the effects of war, and very psychological episode. But Tony Todd is this figurehead really for what happened to this group of soldiers at war. And obviously there's a whole mystery to what he's doing and how he's doing it, and definitely quite a unique X-File and a very strong episode. It's really a grueling one, very powerful. Visually it's very well directed. You've got some great acting in here, really. Tony Todd is the perfect choice for this role of Augustus Cole, because a bit like Candyman, and it is quite a similar role in a way, but I think he just makes it very human, as well as obviously just a very, disturbing and scary. But the fact is, this guy was badly mistreated at war, and I think even in the quote-unquote villain of the week type role, Tony Todd definitely, he has a lot of charisma, obviously, but he also makes the part very human and the character, so that's great to see. But there's a lot of great stuff going on in the episode in terms of the characters and the way the show is building mythology and moving things forward for the season. I'll actually talk about Alex Krycek first of all, because Nicholas Lear returns, and those of you who remember, he made a very brief appearance in season 1 in the episode Gender Bender, but he was playing a completely different character, and thank God they got him back for this role as Alex Krycek, because he is just so good. And Alex Krycek, probably one of the best supporting characters of the whole show. Mulder gets this case passed on to him by his source in the FBI, known as X, who's the new Deep Throat. But essentially, he takes it to Skinner, who doesn't seem very convinced, and fobs Mulder off and says, well, I'll look into it more and I'll contact you if I feel it's worthy of note, worthy of investigating, and kind of sends poor Mulder back to the Mulder tap. I was going to say the wiretap. But it's then that we meet Krycek, because he has actually picked up the case and he actually brings it to Mulder, and sort of looks like a very wet round the ears Clark Kent type Krycek does. And I think that's what's so good about this, because he's obviously saying to Mulder, you know, I admire you, I'm a big fan of yours, and that's why I brought this to you. I want to work with you. And you can sort of see that sort of green rookie sort of side to him, where he is excited to be working with Spooky himself, Mulder. But at the same time, yeah, there's certainly the other side. There's the sort of slick, you know, you can't really trust this guy sort of side. And that's where Mulder starts from, really. I mean, later on, I think probably he starts trusting him more. But at first, at least, he's very much, yeah, can I trust this guy? Trust no one. And that's a thing they do in this episode, where Mulder isn't just going to believe the first person who comes along just because he brings him a case that he's interested in. And the biggest compliment I can pay to Krycek in this episode and Nicholas Lear is then, for the first time in a while, I didn't miss Scully. You know, I mean, she's in this episode and there are scenes with her and Mulder in this episode. Not that many, but there's, I think, at least a couple. But yeah, for the first time this season, I didn't miss that partnership. I didn't miss the fact that they weren't together throughout the episode. Like, Krycek more than made up for this. I love the dynamic with him and Mulder. I love them playing off each other. Mulder, his banter and him like running down Krycek was really great, because at one point he tricks him. He says, you know, if you like rent us a car, I'll meet you out front, and then he like gives him the slip. He goes off on his own, and that's just great stuff. And where Krycek's like, you know, where do you cop off getting this attitude? And hey, you know, the guys at the academy, they all mocked you, all called you Spooky, and Mulder's like, now you're starting to hurt my feelings. And there's some great like one-liners from Mulder in those scenes. A nice little touch is then Scully doesn't even trust Krycek, or is unsure whether to trust him, because at one point they send the body to her to examine, you know, the first like victim. And first of all, I like the touch then Krycek is like grossed out by the body, and that's quite a clever character beat, because it could be then literally he's not used to it, so he is freaked out. Or if you sort of play up the theory, then Krycek can't be trusted and he's acting, that sort of thing, then that could be part of the act to sort of fool them. So I like how that can be like read both ways. But yeah, Scully doesn't trust him neither. There's these like moments where her and Mulder are like talking off to the side, and they're trying not to let him like hear what they're saying. So it's almost like old habits are going to die hard, because they're kind of the team here, even though they're not like the official team. So I do like that. That's a pretty cool idea. Then officially Krycek is, at least for this case, Mulder's partner, but unofficially it's almost like he's off to the side and he's like the in-between guy between Mulder and Scully. There are some nice moments between Mulder and Scully in this episode. That there's a really like moving scene on the telephone where, like, yeah, Mulder's having a little playful dig at her about, yeah, he's more open-minded than I expected him to be. It's nice having a partner who's not constantly questioning. It works so well because they're on the telephone at the time. You know, that sort of gives it this extra layer of, they're missing each other, basically. Chemistry is there between Mulder and Krycek. Now, whether it would be long-term if they move forward, who knows? But certainly for this episode, it works. And can you trust Krycek? I think Nicholas Lear does a great job. A really strong debut for him, officially as Krycek, let's say. And there's just certain stuff throughout the episode that just heightens that drama of can he be trusted, like the scene where Mulder is confronted by Cole and Krycek, apparently thinking that then Cole has a gun because Cole can make things appear, because he's got, essentially what he's got is a Bible in his hand, but Krycek later claims that what it appeared to be was a gun, so that's why he shot him to save Mulder. But again, that heightens the suspense and the question of can you trust Krycek? And as it turns out, we find out at the end of the episode, no, you can't, because he's actually working for the cigarette smoking man, for the FBI bigwigs, and that he has been planted there to like follow Mulder and keep tabs on him. And cigarette smoking man is right there in the room, and that's how the episode ends. I enjoyed the final visual of the episode, although it's a little on the nose because that's some problem is Scully. The problem is their partnership. That's what making things so difficult. Cigarette smoking man has some sort of line. It's every problem has a solution, and then he just puts like his cigarette down in the ashtray. Now, I won't go into any spoilers, but when you see how things develop later on, that could be a bit of a clue, and maybe a little on the nose when you think about it later, but it's a great visual anyway, and a great way to end the episode. So I guess one question I have for you guys listening is, do you think they should have waited a bit longer on that reveal? Do you think Krycek, there should have been the mystery with him for longer before they revealed that he was actually a mole? Because I guess it is quite surprising they reveal it at the end of the first episode that he's in. So do you think they should have waited longer, or do you think it works well as it is? And speaking of other supporting characters in the episode, we have X, I think he's known as I said, the new Deep Throat. And this is the first time we actually see him, Steve Williams, who they do a really good job with in the casting and also in his sort of style and his feel, because he does feel very different from Deep Throat. And I think his overall attitude, they make him different in this episode. Now, there's some great direction in the episode, as I said, and I really like the direction in the scene when him and Mulder meets him. And I mean, obviously, he doesn't tell Krycek, because the only person he has told about this guy's existence is Scully. So he meets X in private, and there's a nice little like tension between Mulder and Krycek when he returns to the car, and Krycek asks him where you were, and Mulder just doesn't answer. But so he meets X, and this scene is really well shot because it's like at this industrial type place. There's like smoke everywhere. It feels very sort of film noir. X is in like a trench coat, which again feels very film noir, and just has this air of mystery about him. And I just love some of the dialogue between him and Mulder. I like when the line from X where he says, shutting down the X-Files was just the beginning. Reopening the X-Files is like imperative or something like that. But it's just really great dialogue that leaps at you from the page, and he delivers so well with his like, kind of downtrodden, like almost husky, harsh sort of tones. But he has a real presence, and whereas I think Deep Throat, although they did a good job at like the mystery around him, I think you could maybe figure out a bit more easier than Deep Throat was like generally trustworthy. There were definitely moments where that was questioned, but I think with X probably that there is this more man of mystery thing about him than there was Deep Throat. Deep Throat seemed largely on the level. It was just some of his methods. And there's something quite appealing about just how open and honest he is, which maybe wasn't always a strong suit of Deep Throat's. But with X, there's this line in the episode where he says to Mulder, then my predecessor paid for like this information with his life. Thing I'm not willing to do. I forget the actual line, but it's along those lines. And so again, I think that's a way to make him feel very different from Deep Throat as well. So I really like that scene. I really like them starting to open up a little more on X, and then you have obviously the actual Cole storyline itself, and when we go through the different victims, we meet obviously some of the other members of that platoon. Do a good set piece. There's some great dramatic visuals, but also when it needs to be more personal and intimate and character driven, it has that as well. There's some great sort of close up on people's faces and their reactions, and so we meet these different veterans, and obviously the whole idea is that they haven't slept for years and years. So we meet this who was another doctor working in a coffee shop that Krycek and Mulder go to interview at one point, and they actually, through talking to this guy, they find out information about this doctor who was like behind like these lobotomy experiments. So that becomes the next sort of big scene where obviously they go to meet him off the train, and obviously Cole is there to try and extract his revenge. Scars they have of the war are really well conveyed, so you see them with like the red in their eyes, and you can see just the scars of war on their face and the history of what they went through, and just how haggard they look. I mean, the guy in the diner who they talk to says he hasn't slept for like 24 years. By John Greer's, who been in lots of stuff, real sort of character actor. You wouldn't, the close up and the intimate nature of that scene, just the way he sort of slurs his words, and he's got like the deep red eyes and very sort of nervous, but really good performance he gives. And as I said, as well as that stuff, there's just some great dramatic, like horror type moments as well. There is kind of an amusing scene at the start, which I did find quite funny. His victim is like taken, it's this doctor, and it's Grisham, his name is, and it's in his apartment, and a fire just gets set off in like the closet or something, and he goes, ah! He gives out this big like sort of scream when the fire comes out of his closet, which is pretty funny. But I think what caps the scene up for me comedy wise is he's got a fire extinguisher in his like closet, and he opens it up, and a tennis racket and ball comes flying out. Yeah. It's hilarious. I just love the fact that he keeps a fire extinguisher in his closet. Very handy, I guess, although it didn't save his life. But his whole acting was pretty funny. I think there's something OTT about it when he's on the phone and stuff. But that's kind of what gets the whole thing sort of going. It all comes down to the final scenes with like Mulder and Tony Todd, and Mulder trying to talk him around, and there's some really powerful, devastating stuff in that scene. Like I especially like the line from Todd's character when he says, "They cut out a piece of my brain." I mean, that is just so dark and really cuts to the meat of the matter. So, like I said, the way Todd plays him and the way the character is, even as it's certainly murky, I don't think he's as much of a villain as like someone like Luther Lee Boggs was in like Beyond the Sea. Light and dark in there. in this character, and Tony Todd makes such an impact on this. To pick many faults, if any, with this episode, it's a really strong episode, and it definitely keeps getting better the more I see it. So that's a real feather in its cap, and I'm gonna give it 8.5 out of 10. I think it's really good stuff, and it may well be one of my favourite X-Files episodes. I'm not sure. Obviously, we'll see as we go along. Certainly the best of this season, and I would expect it to be up there with this season's episodes. But the good news is the quality's just going to keep going up the next couple of weeks, because next time we have a really big two-parter, which is Dwayne Barry and Ascension. So those two episodes are coming up, and those will be my next review. And in fact, next week, I think probably Monday, you can look out for a live stream. I've been watching those two episodes, so that's Dwayne Barry, Ascension, the next two episodes. And just in terms of like the mythology and the arc of the X-Files moving forward, those two are massive episodes. Let me know your thoughts on Sleepless in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. And also share me out on social media. On Twitter, at Keith Beard, I'll put the link in the description. Also follow me on Letterboxd, at Bookhouseboy1980. I'll put that link in the description as well. And just another thing to promote, like recently I've just started with my new tag team partner, Rachel McDonald. We've started doing horror movie reviews together, with like a focus, I guess, mostly on franchises or trilogies. But for something new and current, we've just reviewed all three of the Fear Street trilogy. Find our thoughts on the Fear Street trilogy up on the channel now, and we'll be doing hopefully a review of some sort every week. And the next one will be of the Conjuring movies, the 3 Conjuring movies. So that review will be coming up later in the week. But thanks for listening, guys. See you again soon.